Okay, so World War II, right? Like this whole thing, it lasted from 1939 to 1945. And dude, it was absolutely massive. We're talking about like 60 to 75 million people died. That's wild, man. Just think about that number for a second. So check this out. It all kicks off on September 1st, 1939, when Hitler's Germany just rolls into Poland. And I'm not talking like a casual stroll, bro. Full invasion mode. 2 days later, Britain and France are like, nah, that's not cool, and they declare war. But here's the really crazy part. The Soviet Union invades Poland too, from the other side. Like, they had this secret deal, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. History's full of plot twists, man. Now, fast forward to December 7th, 1941. Pearl Harbor. Exhale slowly. This is where it gets real for America. Japan launches this surprise attack on the U.S. Pacific Fleet in Hawaii. Early morning, right? People are just waking up, having their coffee, and then bam! 353 Japanese aircraft coming in two waves. They sank 4 battleships, damaged 4 more, destroyed like 188 aircraft. 2,003 Americans killed, dude. That's heavy. Roosevelt calls it a date which will live in infamy. And honestly, yeah, the next day America's in the war. But let me tell you about the Eastern Front, because this is where things get absolutely intense. The Battle of Stalingrad from 1942 to 43. This battle was brutal. Like, imagine fighting in a frozen city, building by building, room by room, the Soviets and Germans just grinding each other down. It became this turning point, though. After Stalingrad, the Nazis are basically retreating from the Soviet Union. The whole momentum shifts, you know? Then we get to June 6th, 1944, D-Day, Operation Overlord. This is okay, so this is the largest amphibious invasion in human history. Let that sink in. 156,000 Allied troops landing on 5 beaches in Normandy, Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juneau, and Sword. They'd been planning this for over a year, man. The weather wasn't even ideal. They had to delay it 24 hours. Eisenhower's sitting there going, do we go or not? Because the moon phases, the tides, the timing, everything had to line up perfectly. The guys landing on Omaha Beach, that was the worst. High cliffs, heavy German fire, obstacles everywhere. But they pushed through, established those beachheads, and started the liberation of Western Europe. Like, that's the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany right there. And then, August 6th and 9th, 1945, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the atomic bombs. This is where humanity entered a whole new era, the first and only time nuclear weapons have been used in warfare. Hiroshima on the 6th, Nagasaki on the 9th. The devastation was, there aren't really words for it. Japan surrenders on August 15th, officially signs on September 2nd. The war's over. So what does this all mean? World War II completely transformed everything. The United Nations gets created to try to prevent this from happening again. The US and Soviet Union emerge as superpowers, and that sets up the whole Cold War dynamic. Europe's devastated, which triggers decolonization across Africa and Asia. The world after 1945 is just fundamentally different from before. And here's what really gets me. All of this, all these massive geopolitical changes, came at the cost of over 60 million lives. Soldiers, civilians, entire families wiped out. The Holocaust alone killed 6 million Jews. It's like, we have to remember this stuff, Not just the facts and dates, but the weight of it all. Because this shaped the world we're living in right now. Pretty heavy stuff to think about, man. But that's history. It's real, it happened, and we've got to learn from it. So, okay, let me tell you about the Battle of Midway, man. This is June 1942, right? And this battle, dude, this changed everything. Like, everything. So picture this. It's been about 6 months since Pearl Harbor, yeah? And the Japanese Navy is just, they're on fire, man. Not literally yet, but we'll get to that. They've been crushing it across the Pacific. Hong Kong, Philippines, Singapore, the Dutch East Indies. They're basically unstoppable at this point. But then something happens that really gets under their skin. The Doolittle Raid, April 18th, 1942. American B-25 bombers launched from the carrier Hornet, and they bombed Tokyo, dude, the Japanese capital. Now, militarily speaking, it didn't do much damage, but psychologically, that messed with them, man, really messed with them. So Admiral Yamamoto, this is Isoroku Yamamoto. Brilliant strategist, right? He's like, we got to eliminate those American carriers, bro. They're the real threat. And he comes up with this plan to attack Midway Atoll. It's this tiny little island about 1,300 miles northwest of Hawaii. And the thinking is, if we attack Midway, the Americans have to come defend it, right? It's too close to Pearl Harbor. They can't just let it go. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, man. See, the Americans, they had these code breakers, these absolute geniuses working at Station Hypo in Hawaii, and they're cracking Japanese naval codes. Like, imagine sitting there with these encrypted messages, and slowly, piece by piece, you're figuring out that something big is coming. The Japanese kept referring to this target as AF, just AF. And the Americans were pretty sure it was Midway, but they needed confirmation, you know? So they pull off this incredibly clever move. Midway sends out a message in the clear, not even encrypted, saying they're having problems with their water system. Just a regular message. And then the code breakers intercept a Japanese message saying AF is short of water. Boom, confirmation. So now Admiral Nimitz knows. Chester Nimitz, commander of the Pacific Fleet. He knows when it's going to happen, June 4th, and he knows where. That's huge, dude. That's having the answers before the test, man. So the Japanese roll up with this massive force. 4 fleet carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu. These are the same carriers that hit Pearl Harbor, by the way. They've got like 248 carrier-based aircraft, battleships, cruisers, destroyers. It's an armada, man. And they're commanded by Admiral Nagumo, Chuichi Nagumo. The Americans, they've got 3 carriers, Enterprise, Hornet, and Yorktown. Now, Yorktown is interesting because she'd just been damaged at the Battle of Coral Sea a month earlier. The Navy estimated it would take 3 months to repair her. They did it in 3 days, bro. Just crazy emergency repairs, and they sent her right back out. So it's June 4th, early morning, like crack of dawn. The Japanese launched their first strike on Midway Island itself, 108 aircraft. They're bombing the airfield, the installations. But here's the thing, man. The attack causes damage, but it doesn't knock out Midway's ability to fight back. And the Japanese strike commander radios back saying they need a second attack. Now, this is where timing becomes absolutely critical. See, when those Japanese planes land back on the carriers, they need to be rearmed and refueled for another strike on Midway. So the crews start loading them up with land attack bombs. But then, a Japanese scout plane spots American ships, including a carrier. Admiral Nagumo is like, dude's having the worst morning of his life. He's got planes armed for Midway, but now there's an American carrier out there. He orders the planes to switch armament, take off those land bombs, put on the anti-ship torpedoes and armor-piercing bombs. So now the hangar decks are just chaos, man. Bombs and torpedoes everywhere, planes being rearmed, fuel lines running. Meanwhile, the Americans have launched everything they've got. Torpedo bombers, dive bombers, they're coming in waves. And the torpedo bombers, the TBD Devastators. Dude, these planes are slow, like really slow. And their torpedoes are notoriously unreliable. They go in first, flying low over the water, and the Japanese fighters they shred them, man. It's brutal. Torpedo Squadron 8 from the Hornet, all 15 planes lost. Only 1 survivor out of 30 crew members. That's heavy, man. Torpedo Squadron 6 from Enterprise loses 10 out of 14 planes. Torpedo Squadron 3 from Yorktown loses 10 out of 12. The American torpedo attacks are a disaster. But here's the thing. While the Japanese fighters are down low, slaughtering the torpedo bombers, the American dive bombers are up high, like 14,000 feet high. SBD Dauntless dive bombers from Enterprise and Yorktown. And they arrive at the perfect moment. So it's around 10:22 a.m. The Japanese carriers are turning into the wind to launch their strike force. The decks are packed with fully armed, fully fueled aircraft. And then the dive bombers they fall out of the sky, man, screaming down at like 240 miles per hour. Lieutenant Commander Wade McCluskey is leading the Enterprise group. They hit the Akagi and Kaga. Lieutenant Commander Max Leslie's group from Yorktown hits the Soryu. And in like 5 minutes, man, 3 Japanese carriers are done. Just done. The bombs penetrate the flight decks and detonate in the hangars, setting off this chain reaction with all those armed planes and fuel lines. Akagi gets hit, massive explosions, fires everywhere. Kaga, same thing. Soryu, same thing. These carriers that had dominated the Pacific for 6 months are suddenly flaming wrecks. Can you imagine being on those ships, dude? One minute you're preparing to launch a strike that's going to win the battle, and the next minute your ship is literally exploding around you. That's terrifying. But the battle's not over. Hiryu, the fourth Japanese carrier, she's been separated from the others by a rain squall. She's undamaged. So Admiral Yamaguchi, Taman Yamaguchi, he launches a counterstrike. 2 waves. And they find the Yorktown. First wave hits her with 3 bombs. Yorktown's damage control teams are absolute heroes, man. They get the fires under control, patch the flight deck, get her back up to like 19 knots. Then the second wave comes in, 2 torpedo hits, and that's too much. Yorktown starts listing heavily. They have to abandon ship. She doesn't sink right away, though. A Japanese submarine finishes her off on June 7th. But the Americans find Hiryu. Scout planes from Yorktown locate her, and Enterprise launches dive bombers. They hit her with 4 bombs. Same deal. Massive fires, can't launch aircraft, eventually has to be abandoned. By the evening of June 4th, all 4 Japanese carriers are either sinking or sunk. Over the next couple days, there's more fighting. The Japanese heavy cruiser Makuma gets caught and bombed to pieces. The Americans are hunting down stragglers. But the main battle, that was decided on June 4th. So let's talk about what this means, man. The Japanese lose 4 fleet carriers. These aren't just ships. These are their most elite carriers, with their most experienced pilots and crew. They lose about 3,000 men, including like 110 pilots. These pilots had trained for years and had combat experience. You can build a new carrier in a year or 2, but training a skilled pilot, that takes way longer. The Americans lose 1 carrier, Yorktown, and the destroyer Hammond, about 307 men. It's significant, but it's not crippling. But here's the deeper thing. After Midway, Japan is on the defensive. They can't replace their losses fast enough. The Americans, with their massive industrial capacity, they're just getting started, man. By the end of the war, the US will have built over 100 carriers of various types. Japan never recovers from Midway. Historian John Keegan called it the most stunning and decisive blow in the history of naval warfare. And yeah, dude, that's not an exaggeration. This battle, along with Guadalcanal a few months later, marks the turning point in the Pacific War. What gets me is the role of intelligence, man. Those codebreakers at Station Hypo, they gave Nimitz the gift of knowledge. He knew where and when the attack was coming. That let him position his carriers perfectly. And then there's luck and timing. If those dive bombers had arrived even 5 minutes differently, the whole battle might have gone another way. War is chaos, it's thousands of individual decisions and random chance and skill and courage all colliding together. And at Midway, it all came together for the Americans in this one perfect moment. The Japanese plan was too complex, too spread out. They divided their forces. If Yamamoto had concentrated everything, if the scout plane had found the American carriers earlier, if Nagumo had been more decisive, there are so many what-ifs, man. But history doesn't care about what-ifs. What happened is what happened. And what happened at Midway changed the course of the Pacific War, changed the course of World War II, changed the course of history. Pretty wild when you think about it. How a battle that lasted a few days on a tiny atoll in the middle of the Pacific Ocean could have such massive world-changing consequences. But that's war, dude. That's history. Moments of absolute chaos that define everything that comes after. The Battle of Midway, man. June 4th through 7th, 1942. Remember it.